What is going on, guys? It is October. It's the spooky season. I'm posting a lot of horror content for good reason because I love horror movies. And I've had a lot of fun talking about some independent horror films that I don't think get enough love. And this is a movie that I saw right around the year that it was released, and I was absolutely blown away by it. But similar to The Devil's Candy that I talked about recently, I hadn't seen this movie in quite some time. And I was really looking forward to revisiting it because it had been a while since I checked it out. And the movie I'm going to be discussing today is The Eyes of My Mother. The Eyes of My Mother is directed by Nicolas Pesce. A young, lonely woman is consumed by her deepest and darkest desires after tragedy strikes her quiet country life. So, this was the first movie that I'd ever seen from this director. Since then, I've seen his film Piercing that he did with Mia Wasikowska and Christopher Abbott, which is a movie I loved quite a bit when I watched it. I was really impressed by it, really enjoyed it a lot. And this movie proved to me that he was a very talented director, and I really loved it a lot when I saw it initially. And I was really excited to revisit it, and I loved it just as much this time around, if even more so, because I found even more little things to appreciate with it, and I'll break it all down when I talk about the film as a whole. So, at the beginning of the movie, we're introduced to Francisca, who is a young girl that lives at home with her mother and father, and we see early on her mother and her are constantly working with animals on this farm that they live at in the middle of nowhere, including popping out eyeballs and doing a lot of really strange, uncomfortable things together. And they have these very long conversations together. And at the beginning of the movie, it's about the relationship between these three characters. And one day, Francisca is outside. She's young. She's probably like, I'd say 9 or 10. Very young girl. And this man approaches named Charlie. And he comes up and he asks if her parents are home. He comes up and talks and says, "Can I speak to your mother?" And he says, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you for a second." Comes inside the house. She invites him in. And he pulls a gun on the both of them. And he says, "I need you to go into the bathroom to the mother and you need to sit right here." Takes the mother into the bathroom, and the father comes home, and when he comes inside, he looks at Francisca and says, "Where's your mother?" And she points at the bathroom, and he goes in the bathroom, and Charlie is bashing the mother's head in, and he's laughing hysterically. Well, the dad pulls him off of her and locks him up in the barn outside their house, and he has Francisca help him bury the mother. Slowly but surely, they keep him alive in the barn, and Francisca removes his eyeballs and starts doing all these surgeries on him, and he talks to her before she does that about his love for killing people and that he does it because it feels good. And so she kind of treats him as her pet. And then the movie jumps forward in time to her in her more adult years. It doesn't 100% tell you how old she is, but it's more in her adult years. Her father's health is deteriorating and she still has him outside. And it's all about her mental state. We're watching her character. Is she capable of doing these horrible things? What has her childhood driven her to in her adult life? And it's really just this fascinating look at human psychology. And was she broken from the start? Is this something that she's learned because of the things that she's experienced firsthand? And I think that it's just a very fascinating, thought-provoking film that uses these snapshot of life sequences to make your mind as a viewer wander. It's shot in absolutely gorgeous black and white cinematography that just is mesmerizing to look at. I said it in my Letterboxd review, but there are moments of this that remind me of Lynch, which is like the highest compliment I could pay a director. There's not a ton of expositional dialogue either. It's brief character interactions. And what's so interesting is our lead character does really horrible things again and again and again. But because of the tragedy that she's experienced and the horrible things that she has witnessed firsthand in her life, you kind of feel bad for her. And so it's really interesting as a viewer to kind of have that push and pull of, yes, she's doing these really terrible things, but you also feel really bad for her. And I think one of the things I love in a movie and books that I read are filmmakers and authors that are willing to explore elements of the human psychology that other people people might be afraid to go into. And that's what I really like about this movie, is you're taking a character who is doing really terrible things and really awful things, including torture, and providing some sort of humanity to her, and looking at her through the lens of the fact that she's a person with a lived experience, and that she's not getting the help that she needs, and she's not going about things in her life in the correct way. And there's something so interesting to me about that, and the ideas that that conveys. You're dealing with someone who's capable of intense murder, and it starts to make you question, like, does she have feeling? Is she a sociopath even? And I love that, like, not all the questions are 100% answered. It leaves your mind going as to what she's capable of. And the way that this movie blows up in the third act, I never would have expected. It just really takes an entirely different direction than I ever could have imagined. And I know there's a lot of complaints about this movie. I think part of the reason is you get a lot of time jumps, and the movie's only around an hour and 16 minutes. But I think the director is doing that very intentionally. You're getting this person's life through a specific amount of time periods, and, like, has she shifted as a person? What kind of things inside her have changed? Does she have the capacity to feel? And I think that all those things are really interesting to think about and peel apart. And in watching it again, it made my mind roam even more. And I think the lead actress who plays Francisca does a phenomenal job in this movie, just really kind of drawing you in with her facial expressions and the way that she kind of commands each scene. She also has this, like, childlike nature to her, even though she's capable of doing really horrible things. There's this, like, innocence to her that's also kind of guised with these sociopathic tendencies, which makes it really interesting to watch a character who's so multifaceted. And this movie is just really fantastic. I really liked it a lot, and watching it again, it kind of cemented itself as one of those indie horror films I just want to recommend to people. And it's obviously for a very specific audience. It's much slower paced. It's not like something violent is happening every second, and a lot of the violence is implied. You don't always necessarily see the violent action that's happening. Oftentimes you'll see the aftermath of the violent action, which, as I said in my Devil's Candy review, sometimes that's more horrifying, is to get the implication of violence instead of actually seeing the violence. And I really enjoy this movie a lot. I know it's not going to be for everyone, but it is a movie that I would highly recommend checking out if you've never seen it before. So have you seen The Eyes of My Mother? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was fantastic. This is obviously a revisit for me, but I really enjoyed it a lot, and I'm looking forward to watching it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.